Welcome to the From Concealment Podcast, the show for firearm enthusiasts who like to shoot, train, carry, and compete. Get ready for some shooting and sight, firearm and accessory reviews, and of course, insight on conceal carry. And now, broadcasting from behind enemy lines in the From Concealment studio, it's Pete Mitchell and Dan Sams.
Hey, Freedom Nation, this is Pete Mitchell.
And I am Dan Sams.
And you are listening to the From Concealment Podcast, or perhaps you're watching the From Concealment Podcast on Facebook Live.
Yeah, because you can do both now. Because we are in the 21st century.
We are tech savvy, no doubt. No doubt.
Yeah, it's my middle name.
Yeah, so man, I got to tell you, man, it's been a fun week. Last week, okay, so let me just give a plug to our former sponsor who's coming back as a sponsor, FastOC.
Yeah.
FastOC.com. They weren't sure if they were going to make it through the pandemic, and so they put everything on hold, but they're back right now. So,
hey, all right.
Some props, man. If you are in Southern California, if you are looking for a CCW course, if you are looking for a handgun challenge, which are my favorite things to do there at FastOC, if you want to take some training, if you're brand new to the gun world, which in California, we went from 2.5 million gun owners to 4.5 million gun owners during the pandemic.
Yeah, buddy.
And the writing is on the wall, man. The state of California is freaking out because of how many people are buying guns in California. So if you're one of those newbies, I know it is, right?
Yeah.
If you're one of those newbies and you're like, hey man, I gotta, get trained on this thing, then head on over to fastoc.com. You gotta sign up quick for their courses. Right now, there is a huge demand in California. I mean, absurd demand for training. I know I was talking with Lance, the owner of FastOC, and he was saying that he put up like 2 courses, and within an hour, one of them was already sold out. Like they are just selling out like that. So
that's even here in Ohio, which we're not. I mean, we're dealing with a lot of gun sales, not on the level of California, and yet our CCW classes are filling up quick. I mean, I'm watching the schedule. I'll post a class up, and it's full within a couple of days sometimes. Right. I mean, when I say that, I'll post 3 classes, and within a couple of days, they're all full.
They're full. Yeah.
Crazy times, man.
Yeah, it is. Now, here's the thing, and we've talked about this before, but if you don't remember, let me explain to you. California is, of course, a communist state. We are in no way free. Yeah. And my wife somehow still thinks this is the best place for us to live. Whatever. I can't change her mind. I'm stuck. So you got to understand, to buy a handgun in California, we have this thing called the roster. Completely unconstitutional, absolutely violates Heller, and it keeps getting smaller every year. So we've only got, 500 or 600 types of guns on it. Not just types, models, total. Think about how many handguns are in the marketplace. We're down to 500 or 600. Those are the only ones we can buy. They, of course, passed it in California as the safe handgun list roster, right? Safe, right? Which is just BS because anyone in law enforcement can buy an off-roster gun. Like anybody can.
That's right. Yeah.
All the feds, all the state police, DAs, and they recently expanded it to like basically park rangers, like basically anybody.
Park rangers. Go ahead. It's just funny.
Anybody
they didn't get included the first time around.
Yeah, no, and they were like, it was ridiculous, right? They're like, no, we can't include everybody. And they're like, everybody except a citizen can buy an off-roster gun, which is why I've said the reason why Glock still makes Gen 3 guns is because those are the only ones Californians can buy.
That's great.
And we are still the largest market. Now, eventually, Glock's going to say, well, screw it. We're not going to do it anymore. In fact, and here's how absurd it is. I don't know if it's still the case, but last year, you could buy either black Gen 3 Glocks or olive drab green Gen 3 Glocks. You could not buy any other color, not brown, not, because those were not on the roster.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so
they're outlawing colors?
Well, no, it's the way they get around it is they go, well, it's not on the roster, so we don't know if that's a safe handgun. Because apparently the change in color changes the ballistics of the firearm, changes everything about it. It's ridiculous.
Something about that makes me angry. Like,
that's the reason why I'm
triggered by that.
All of my Glocks are olive drab green, because I heard California extorts firearms. You have to pay $25,000 a year to have your firearm on the roster.
Yeah.
And that's an extortion. And so it's actually in the courts being fought as an extortion. You're extorting us to give you, the state, $25,000 to sell our product. How is that legal? Yeah. It's not legal. And so basically what happens is they go, well, it's not really worth it. We're not selling enough of this handgun. We're taking it off the roster. We don't want to pay California the $25,000. That's the reason why our roster keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller, until eventually there'll be like 100 guns, and they're going to be all like High Point. And,
oh dear.
And
High Point's not going to be able to afford it.
I know, right? Not at their price point.
Yeah.
So,
man, it's all kinds of unconstitutional crap I'm learning about that's making me mad.
Oh, it's freaking California, man. It's just absurd.
Yeah. So, like they've got tyranny that they've made up new tyranny that I didn't even know existed.
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
California,
go ahead. I'm sorry. It just gets me upset.
Out of its mind. So when I say the state of California is out of handguns, I mean the state of California is out of handguns statewide. You walk into a gun store, there is nothing. There are no handguns in the little cases. There's none on the walls. Everything is sold out because the cops have basically said, we're not going to protect you. The government said, we're going to let them do whatever they want. And people are freaking out because of the pandemic, and they're freaking out because the cops aren't going to do anything. So they're buying guns like crazy. The state is sold out of guns. My buddy, I think I mentioned this on the podcast. My buddy sold his Shield for $750 because you can't buy any guns. Like you can't buy any. And so basically what he did was, in California, you're limited to one handgun every 30 days to purchase, to the minute, tracked to the minute. And that's if you're buying it from a dealer. If you buy it from a private party, you can buy as many as you want right now, because they figure, well, it's already in the state, so whatever. However, to stop people from getting around the 30-day rule, they limit you in California as to how many private party transactions you can sell in a year. So you're limited to selling 5 transactions. Now, it could be multiple guns per transaction, but you can only do 5. So for a guy like me who's got, more than 5 guns, let's just leave it like that. If I needed to sell them all.
You have 6 guns, Pete.
I have 6 guns. I have 6. If I wanted to sell all 6 guns, I would have to get at least one person to buy multiple guns.
There you go.
Or I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So because of how crazy it is in California, I'm like, okay, I got 4 guns that I never shoot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never going to shoot them. Mainly because I've now taken on the philosophy that I carry my Glock as my primary firearm. I'm going to train every chance I get with my Glock.
It's the right way.
So I'm like, you know what? This Beretta, I wanted a Beretta, so I bought a Beretta 92 FS. I'm not going to sell it, or I'm not going to use it. I think I literally put like 100 rounds through it. I think the guy I bought it from had it for 10 years, and he put like 100 rounds through it. This thing is like pristine. I'm like, I can get top dollar for that. I don't even know what Beretta 92s go for, because literally I traded my Shield for it. Like, he wanted a Shield, and he didn't want his Beretta. I'm like, oh, I want a Beretta. Let's trade.
Done.
And then I was like, you know what? My Springfield XD9, really good gun. I basically kept it as my trunk gun. I call it my oh crap gun, and I'm like, but I'm never going to shoot the thing. I like it. It's a good solid gun, but I'm not going to carry it either. I'm a Glock guy. That's what I carry. So I'm like, those two guns, because they're 9mm, sell in a heartbeat. And I'm like, okay, I got two 1911s that one is the very first gun I ever bought. And I'm like, I never shoot this thing. And then the other one is I love it. It's my freaking Dan Wesson Bobtail, 1911 Bobtail. Freaking gorgeous. Best trigger on any gun I got. It's one of my carry guns. But I'm like, yeah, but I learned from training, I don't freaking flip the safety off because I'm so used to doing Glocks. I'm not going to carry it. Yeah. I might as well sell it. So I'm like, all right, I got 4 guns that I can sell. So last Thursday, I'm at the Fast OC Handgun Challenge, and the Lance is talking about how we're all doing our debrief after we're all done. Which, by the way, I made it in the top 50%. I'm just happy with those guys if I can make it in the top 50 because they are freaking good. And it had been months since I'd done a challenge, so nowhere even in the range of where those guys are at. But I'm like, I don't care, man. Top 50%, I'll take it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, I got 4 guns that I'm trying to sell. And Lance's like, oh, what are they? And I'm like, I whittle them off real quick. And he's like, well, no one's going to buy those. And I go, well, not you guys here. I mean, you guys are gun guys. I'm like, but the marketplace, I can sell it. I can get basically better than retail right now, which is insane. So literally one of the guys, he turns to me, he goes, hey, tell me about that Beretta. So anyway, we work out a little side deal. So the Beretta's gone, right? Then my buddy yesterday texts me and he's like, hey man, I got to get my CCW. Things are getting crazy out there. What do I got to do? So I'm walking him through it. And he goes, well, I got my Beretta 92 FS. Is that a good carry gun? I'm like, well, I mean, it's a little bit big. I mean, it's a full size gun. I go, I like carrying full size guns, but I'm kind of like the oddball. Most people don't like carrying full size guns. And so I go, well, I'm actually selling some of mine. And so he nabs my XD and he nabs my 1911. I'm like, one transaction, 2 guns, perfect, right? Done. Keeps me down under if I gotta sell more. And so, I mean, it's just like crazy times right now where I can, I'm literally getting the XD, I'm getting slightly better than retail. I was giving him a deal because he's a friend. Slightly better than retail is a deal, right now in California.
Nice.
Because I could probably get, this is how crazy it is, I could probably get $650 for the Springfield XD. Like, that's insane. But that's what I could get right now in California because you can't buy any guns. I got for my Springfield 1911 loaded, Parkerized, a gun that, retails, I think it's like $879, $889, something like that. I got solid $900 and I probably got, 1,500, 2,000 rounds through it. I'm like, this is awesome.
That is awesome. I mean, it's terrible for freedom what's happening, but it's awesome for you selling your guns.
I'm like, dude, this is great. Yeah, I can't talk about everything publicly, but let's just say things are good. Things are good. I got to go do the paperwork. We got to do all of our private party transfers through a dealer. So I got to meet up with them at dealers and actually finish the paperwork, and they hold on to it for 10 days here in California. Gotta love California.
Oh, it sucks, man. But hey, good for you selling some guns, man.
Man, I'm telling you, I'm like,
so you're a regular arms dealer, man.
I also got because of all of this, I also got a lead on a gun that I really, really want, and I'm in the process of acquiring it. It's going to take a few months because it's an off-roster gun, meaning it's not. I can't go to a dealer and get it. I got to buy it from a private party, which is how they all get into California because all the cops buy all the stuff that we actually want, and they turn around and sell it to us at 2 to 3 times retail. So cops have been making money off of the roster for a long time. But looks like I'll be getting my hands on a Glock 48. And I got to tell you, man, I really want the Glock 48. I really want one.
Yeah, you should.
I also want a
good gun.
19X, but that's off the roster too. And I'm like, crap, dude. One at a time. Glock 48, then figure out the 19X later. But like awesome. those right now would cost anywhere the Glock 48 would probably cost $1,300 off roster prices. The Glock 19X right now you could probably get it for about $1,100. Like that, it's just stupid. It's stupid. It's California.
Yeah, man. This is exciting that some things are happening. Yeah. So speaking of communist California, did you see the shot of LA County 4th of July helicopter shot? Because they essentially banned all the fireworks, and there's this glorious helicopter shot of just everywhere across the city.
What you got to understand is that in California, fireworks that shoot up in the air have been illegal since I've been alive. So we have what are called safe and sane, which are, they sit on the ground, they spit up, that's it. Nothing, no Roman candles, no mortars, nothing like that. And it was a war zone on the 4th of July.
Beautiful.
It was war zone.
That gave me hope for California that I have not seen in some time. I'm like, if they can defy that stupid order, maybe they'll defy some other ones.
And we had a lot of fires too because of it. So here's the thing. We did.
If you're going to defy an order, you should do it safely.
We had apartment buildings burned down. We had grass fires. I mean, freaking California, right?
Yeah.
So I got to share this real quick, and because it actually does pertain to guns. So we had to go to a place where it was legal to fire off any fireworks.
Yeah.
So we go to my mother-in-law's house. She's in LA County. And she lives a couple of miles away from where my wife and I used to live, our very first house together. And it was like a war zone there at July 4th. So we were like, we're done. The kids are tired. They're going to fall asleep. Let's go drive over to our old house and just see the neighborhood. So we drive over. They're doing Roman candles. They're doing everything, right? Just like we remembered it, except it looked a little bit cleaner than when we were there. So then we go to get on the freeway, and we turn onto the on-ramp, and as soon as we turn onto the on-ramp, we're like, oh, crap. Everything is dead stop. And I mean dead stop. So we get to the top of the on-ramp, and everyone's behind us, so we couldn't back down and get out. And it was so dead stop that everyone's getting out of their cars. They're walking around the freeway. And I'm like, oh, man, dude, what's going on? Is there an accident? I'm like, no BLM protest is going on tonight, on the freeway. That's not happening. Sorry, my Siri just heard me. She heard Black Lives Matter and thinks I'm talking to her. And, well, she has a black phone, so I don't. Anyway, so anyway, we're at the top, right? This is 9:30 at night, and all of a sudden, people are literally walking up the side of the on-ramp to see what's going on, and all the headlights are there, so you see these shadows, and I'm like, what's going on, dude? Because I am not in a good area. This is we didn't live in a great area at all. And I swear the first couple we see walking up, it's an old dude, shaved head, wife beater on, carrying a can, and I swear it's a beer. It's not when he came back, I could see it was a Coke. At least that's what the can was. But I'm like, dude, freaking glad I have a gun on me. Because I'm like, I don't know what's going on, man. And I'm like, why didn't I bring my 19 with the RMR? I was carrying my 26. Just because I was like, it's smaller, it's 4th of July. And I'm like, and you start kicking yourself because that's the one I shoot the most is my 19. And I'm like, dude, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, 25, 30 minutes later, the traffic starts moving. Everyone starts running to their cars. We get to move, and there's nothing on the freeway. There's no car by the side. There's literally nothing. I have no idea what was going on.
It's weird.
I don't know. I mean, maybe they pulled it all the way off and took it off an off-ramp. I have no idea.
Strange.
But I was like, man, am I glad I carry a gun. Because I don't know what was going on. Everyone's out of their cars, walking around the freeways. We've seen the protesters and all that. I'm like, I don't know what's going on.
When you can't go anywhere, you're in a tricky situation. That's one of the things something to remember. You probably already do this, but leaving yourself room. If you see traffic, don't pull all the way up to the car in front of you. Leave ideally another 2 car lengths so that you've got room to pull up, back out, do whatever you can, or at least room to.
And I was almost going to do that because I did. I was like, oh crap! Well, I'm not going to get right up on that guy because I don't know if there was a little bit of room on the side, and I'm like, I got a backup camera, so I might be able to back down. The problem is at the end of that where the street is, that's a really busy street. And I'm like, will I even be able to literally back off the end of it?
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know. I mean, I'm just going to have to play it by ear, and eventually I might just have to pull that. I kept hoping everyone behind me was going to back up, but they didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Crazy times, man. Yeah. But no, good to be ready in that kind of situation for sure.
Yeah.
So you got to give us, I got a story for today, but you got to give us an update on the carnivore diet, man.
Yeah.
How are things going?
Dude, all right. So the carnivore diet, for those of you who have been listening, or for those of you, rather, I should say, who haven't been listening, I'm doing this for 30 days. I got 2 more weeks to go of just eating animal products, which is basically beef and eggs. Those are my 2 primary things. Chicken mixed in. And a couple of smaller caveats to it. I do take 1 meal, if you will, 1 dessert a week. I do with the family. We go out for ice cream. So Saturday, 4th of July, I was like, all right, I'll have ice cream. And so I do have ice cream then, which I was making the joke with my wife. I'm like, well, technically, ice cream is made from milk. Milk's an animal product. But, you know, the Reese's peanut butter cups mixed in with my ice cream, I don't think I could justify that one. But it was delicious nonetheless.
Yeah.
So craziest thing on this thing, my energy level is totally stable. I'll take my blood glucose. I got a test for it. I'll take it after a meal. Normally, you know, I'll hit 120, 125, which is normal. Basically anything 100 to 140 after you eat is normal, because your body's getting hit with all this food. And I'm still at like 96, 92, 89. It's crazy, right? And I'm like, that's why there's no ups and downs. Like your blood glucose is just steady. On a side note, a weird side note, and I hope I can say this on this podcast. This isn't the big one that I got that's coming up in a couple of weeks. So I'm going to let Dan hear everything first. We won't go live on Facebook, and he'll decide whether or not we post it on the podcast. But weird little side effect. When you eat primarily animal products, chicken, beef, eggs, your body uses almost every bit that you eat. And so, how shall I say this? You don't have very much waste. If you know what I'm saying.
Yes. So that means, Pete, you're not full of crap.
I'm not full of crap. Not even, it's the weirdest thing in the world. Like, you will go days without having to go, and you're not constipated. It's like, I don't have to go because my body doesn't have any waste to push out, because it's literally using every little thing that you give it. Like, that's
pretty interesting.
Weird. Because you always hear, oh, you got to eat fiber. And apparently, you know, the gurus who are all into the carnivore diet, I look at that and I'm like, no one really knows. But they're like, no, basically, you know, when you're eating carbs, you're eating fruits, vegetables, which I used to eat, not a lot of, but, 100 grams a day. That's mostly what your waste is. It's funny, man. And so here's the thing. I have a condition called diverticulitis, or like when you have an attack or whatever. Really, you never want to get this thing. And supposedly you get it, most like senior citizens get it after a lifetime of eating processed foods. I got it like 20 years ago after a lifetime of eating processed foods, because I used to eat so bad. And I would get an attack 2 to 3 times a year. And these are literally the most painful thing you could possibly imagine. Your body is cramping. And what I discovered is that what's happening is your body is trying to get the bacteria that's in your intestine out of your body. That's the reason why you're cramping. It's trying to get it out. So you form these little pockets in your intestine, and bacteria will get in there and fester, and then that's why you get the cramps. Your body's trying to get this out. So I haven't had an attack for like 8 years, basically since my son was born. And then after I started eating clean, but I was eating a ton of fruits and vegetables and healthy food, all of it healthy, I had a couple more attacks. But they were nothing like what they were like, years ago. Like nothing. So I was like, dude, I'll take these over those. And the only way you get better with that is you got to get on antibiotics. And then you will basically be better within 24 hours. It's like it's like taking a freaking hit of cocaine, right? As soon as you get it, you're feeling better. Not that I know. I've never taken a hit.
I was going to say, this is what you compare it to, Pete. All right.
I'm just guessing. I'm guessing from what I've seen in the movies and on TV. So, and I'm like going through this, and I'm like, okay, so I used to have this philosophy: go early, go often. Like, you never want to have a backup when you got the diverticula pouches. It's like if you feel like you got to go, man. Just don't wait for nothing, because you don't want to give your body a chance to form the bacteria. And now I'm like, dude, this could be the answer to diverticulitis, is eat animal products, because you have so little waste to begin with. It's like, I'm totally looking at this going, I don't think I would have a problem with diverticulitis if all I did was carnivore diet. Like, I think I would actually kill that problem forever.
Sounds awesome, man.
It's crazy. Now, I don't think I'll actually continue this after the 30 days, only because it's really hard to do. Like, I really like my Ezekiel bread. I like bananas. I like apples, but I can't complain with the results at all.
Yeah. Gaining
muscle, still losing weight. I'm down probably 5 pounds since the beginning. Finally hit the weight that I was when I got married, right? So I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Nice.
But to be fair on that, part of that I believe is because last week I do everything that they tell you not to do on the carnivore diet. So like, I count my calories. They tell you never count your calories. I do all of that because I've been trying to lose weight. And so looking at the difference between how many calories I'm burning a day versus how many I'm consuming a day, I did take my caloric intake down last Wednesday. I was like, all right, I think I'm still eating too much to lose weight. So I took it down about another 500 calories a day. So that's, without a doubt, that's part of the reason for the weight loss over this last week. That's whereas the first week it wasn't. But it's interesting, man. It's an interesting little experiment.
Yeah, well, I got some people interested in it based on them listening to the podcast, watching the thing.
Wait until I'm telling you, I have been verifying one of the side effects. I've been verifying it over the last couple of weeks as much as I can, and I am telling you, I think when I tell this story, if we're allowed to go with it, like if you go, no, Pete, that's cool, I think every guy on the planet is going to go onto this diet.
I can only guess what this is, and it sounds like a similar experiment I did to growing my beard. And I would imagine that the results are similar.
Similar, but let me tell you, it will be a classic episode, because I should say it's not just me that's testing this. My best friend Jethro happens to be doing the exact same diet as me, and he actually he goes out with his family once a week for ice cream as well. And I'm telling you, so it's actually not going to be my story I'm going to share with you. It's going to be Jethro's. Yeah.
You know what? It's funny. You've got your friend Jethro. I got my friend Leroy. But they should get together. And
they probably should. No doubt.
Speaking of which, speaking of Leroy, I've got 2 quick Leroy stories that I'd like to share if you're up for it.
Yeah, let's hear it.
One is Leroy at church was just noting to me this week how many more people are interested in buying guns, even still. And how many people are interested in moving from what I would call FUD guns. And I don't mean to say that disrespectfully, but there's a whole lot of people that have their 30-06 hunting rifle. They've got their Colt Cowboy, and they have fun shooting, and those are still some of my favorite guns to shoot. Like, that's fun to me. But they're changing their mindset over to like, I got to get an AR. I need to get a fighting weapon. And so I'm having a lot of conversations about AR builds, opening people up to the world of 80% lower receivers. Still, so many people don't know that that's a thing, that you can have a completely legal, unregistered weapon if you mill out that 80%er on your own, and there's jigs and there's all that kind of stuff out there for you. Talk through all the build. Lots of people interested. Leroy, it just keeps having conversations. But Leroy had another interesting situation last week that he wanted to tell me about. And he told me it's all right to share on the show. So I'm going to tell a little bit about Leroy. Was out shooting with some buddies at the field behind his house. Leroy knows his ballistics pretty solidly. So Leroy's got he's got some flat land. So he's got about 100 yards to a target. And then he's got another 150 yards before woods. And in the woods, he has concrete culverts. I don't know if you guys know what those are. About 5 feet high all across there to make sure that there is a fully solid backstop even after that amount. And not to mention he's shooting in the ground. So then there's trees. Then there's more field, about another 150 to 200 yards. Then more trees. And when I say trees, I mean a complete thicket. You cannot see through to the other side trees. And then houses. So Leroy's triple careful. He shoots from elevation to make sure he's shooting into the ground, make sure that backstop is there. He's doing everything the way you're supposed to. Every now and then he'll shoot with pistol caliber. When he does that, he may not be from elevation, but he's still shooting into the ground, still all of the, whatever there. Leroy's been doing this for like 3 years at the range behind his house. The guy who lives all the way on the other side of the second field, behind the trees, comes around while he's shooting with some friends. And the guy's like, my son says that the bullets are hitting his car. You got to stop. And Leroy's like, man, no, okay. We'll take care of that. I'm so sorry. And he immediately goes into like, how could this happen? But hey, we want to make this right. Hey, I'll make it right. No worries. So the guy's like, well, we already called the cops. He's like, okay. So the guy pulls off. A while later, cops show up, and Leroy's expecting that somebody's going to have found a .223 round that somehow just got shot too high in the air. Still kind of weird for it to go that far and not drop to the ground, but okay, right? Cops show up, and they start talking and say like, hey, so here he says blah, blah, blah. I hit the car. He doesn't want to press charges. He just wants things repaired. And so Leroy's like, all right, well, let us know what's going on. Can I see the pictures? And the cop's like, I don't have any pictures. Like, so you don't have any pictures of the damage? They're like, no, he's not pressing charges, so we're not going to really be involved. We're just going to, transfer the information. Leroy's like, all right. So he says, all right, well, so what caliber was it? Because he's thinking, you know what? I know what we were shooting that day. And so if the caliber doesn't match up, I'll know it wasn't us. And they're like, well, we looked at the rounds because they were right next to the car, which I'm like, that's also kind of strange. Like, how could it hit the car? And he's like, well, it didn't penetrate. I'm like, okay, I understand it didn't penetrate. If there's just a dent, though, if it hit hard enough to make a dent, there should be some bounce. Like, but to have it right there next to it, that's really strange. So all these things are looking more and more strange. So Leroy's like, is it 40? Is it 45? And they're like, we don't know. But it's either a 45 or a 40. And they're like, it's probably a 45 ACP. So Leroy's like, well, wait a minute. Like, that's more than 500 yards away. And just is in the moment, he's just like, that's really, really, really strange that a 45 ACP would somehow go through trees and concrete and 500 yards without hitting the ground and somehow be able to dent a vehicle. So the cops are like, that's weird. And they go on their way. Next, later on, the guy complaining comes back over, talks a little bit more, whatever, trying to be nice, but all this seems strange. So Leroy has a couple of beers, gets online, looks up the ballistics for 45 ACP, which I recommend everyone do. Turns out, at 500 yards, there is a 100-foot drop on 45 ACP at 230 grain. Means it's just about impossible for a round to get there. And so Leroy has some more conversation. All of a sudden, the guy's coming back saying like, well, At first he said he just wanted paint for the car. Now he's saying, well, I'm going to get a quote for what it would be to fix it. And then I'm going to pocket the cash and I'm going to, buy paint and blah, 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 blah. It's clearly just a big scam. And so what we're learning, though, is very quickly, Leroy gives me a call. We start talking a little bit about those ballistics, and we realize, like, hey, can't get there. So then we start asking a few more questions, start talking to a range officer from the military, a couple of other guys. 45 ACP is not going to go 500 yards unless you shoot almost straight up in the air. And even then, it's unlikely. And if that happens, it's only going to land on top of the vehicle, not hit it on the side, because you just can't get it there otherwise. So all that said, there's some vindication for Leroy, but it also is a warning for all of us. One, you better know your ballistics, because when the cops show up and they're asking questions that can't be the thing, it sure helps to pull out numbers. And in the moment, Leroy didn't have the numbers. Right. Leroy is like, hey, that just can't be. We're shooting into the ground, da-da-da-da-da. And he's saying all things that are legitimate, but cops like to know, and anybody, they want you to be able to pull out a chart and say, here's the trajectory, that can't be us. And he couldn't do it in the moment. So one thing to note, if you're shooting something, know the ballistics, know the grain you're shooting, be able to defend yourself in a situation like that. Second, definitely worthwhile to have a few guys you can call that are legitimate ballistics experts. You don't have to know them personally. You just got to have a little bit of connection so that you can make a call and say, hey, this is what I'm told. This is what the research says. Will you back me up? Because if you're in a situation where you're going to have to defend yourself in small claims court, or heaven forbid, and something more serious, Leroy hadn't broken any laws. The cops admitted he was allowed to do what he was doing. Man, it's going to be helpful to know your ballistics, not only for safety, but just to be able to prove that you were doing things right. So that was just on my mind this week, something worth considering. Keep yourselves safe. Leroy had a story that could have turned out a lot worse. Jury's still out, but the guy's not following up, and it's looking like he knows that Leroy knows that he's bullcrapping.
So tell everyone, what does Leroy do let's go over that backstop, because I think that's when you have your own home range, which would be freaking awesome to me. Obviously, safety is paramount. I mean, I'm always on Zillow looking at homes in Texas because I want to get out of California. And I figured Texas is probably the only state I could get my wife to even consider moving to. But even that, it's dicey. And so I know in different parts of Texas, they have rules. Like if you have so much acreage, you can shoot on your own property. But I still look at some of these and I'm like, there's a lot of open space in between where you're shooting and there's not trees. Yeah. So let's talk about that. The backstop that Leroy uses. Yeah. Obviously you're shooting down. Not everyone has that convenience, if you will. I shouldn't say you, but Leroy. Though I think you shoot down too, don't you, on your property? I shoot
down also. Yeah. I do that anyway. Anywhere I'm shooting, I don't want to set my target at level and maximize even if I've got a good backstop, I want to put that thing right on the ground. So I've got ground serving as backstop in addition to the backstop itself.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But let's talk about that backstop. What do you recommend for your own little home range?
Well, a couple of things. One, a lot of people will tell you that railroad ties are a good way to go. And I have mixed feelings about the railroad ties. You are still shooting at wood, and your rounds can still penetrate woods. And interestingly enough, the cops that talked to Leroy tried to sell him on, railroad ties. Certainly a great way. I wouldn't recommend only using railroad ties. Think about maybe using railroad ties as a nice little stand. Throw some dirt behind it, right? You want to be shooting into something that will completely absorb that thing.
Yeah.
So that's part of the value of trees, because they are more likely to absorb than to ricochet. So that's great, but you can ricochet off of wood. It can happen, and so and that's where that's where just shooting into dirt is the best thing. I like to shoot from elevation. I like to still have some type of a wood backstop. which is I know what Leroy does. And then in addition to, he's got dirt back there. And then, of course, on back, he's got those concrete culverts that are just there. They're one more thing to stop. But he's not shooting into those. They're the last resort stoppage. Should something happen to go 300 yards, or that I'm estimating for him, I think he's at 200 yards once they hit that. No, I'm sorry, that's 250 yards. 250 yards where they would be hitting those, and that just, it's not going to happen, but it's there in a last resort. So I would recommend dirt, and then maybe use, if you can imagine using railroad ties as the thing you can actually attach targets to, throw some dirt behind that so you've got something to absorb. But that's my recommendation. Dirt mound is a good way. And of course, growing up in West Virginia, the best was just to be shooting into the side of a hill. You're just shooting into the side of the mountain. There's nowhere for it to go. You're not even worried about, accidentally shooting too high. It's either shooting into a hillside or you're shooting straight up in the air. And that's the only two options. So yeah, that's what I'm recommending. Dirt is my favorite, but you got to have enough of it. You've got situations where stuff can go through even a dirt mound. It doesn't happen much. It can happen. So
I think you also got to too be you got to think through what you're shooting, the caliber, what's the grain that your powder that you've got in there, because we've got a range out here, somewhat close. I mean, it's about an hour away. Really, really very popular range, and it's an outdoor range, and they've got dirt mounds. And I can't remember the whole story exactly, but they were doing a competition, and the dirt mounds were only rated for X amount.
Yeah. And
they were shooting something higher caliber. It was a rifle that they were shooting. It ended up going through and shot a guy basically right center of the chest. And there was a doctor who was, part of the event. She was like over on him in seconds, still nothing they could do.
Yeah,
because, and I'm surprised that place is still around. Like, I mean, really, can you really sign away that? I mean, you knew what it was rated. Yeah. But my point is, if you start shooting your 30-06, how much dirt you got? It's
going to take a lot of dirt.
Yeah. You start shooting your AR-10, how much dirt you got? And how far away, and how solid is it, and all that stuff. I mean, but you really got to think that through.
That's where elevated shooting just helps a lot.
Absolutely.
If you get yourself a bench that, it's almost like the kids' playhouses that are I don't know, they're only 4 or 5 feet off the ground. It's not that high. But if you're shooting from up there, you are shooting into the ground. And then you've got the Earth's crust as your backstop. Now, I would still say don't let that be your only backstop. But, man, the confidence of knowing that I'm going into the ground as opposed to, I've got to trust that however many feet of dirt mound, I feel a lot better.
Sure.
Still recommend the dirt mound, but I recommend being real safe, real careful. Sorry, I've got a request here. So that's what I'm recommending, man. Everybody be safe. And it all comes back to knowing your ballistics too. How many people just think a bullet is a bullet and powder is powder, and they don't have any idea what's going on with that. And like you say, you start shooting a 308 or a 30-06, and all of a sudden what you thought was going to stop a bullet and was only designed to stop a subsonic 45 ACP, you can get yourself into trouble.
Absolutely.
And similarly, if you don't know what that round will do, and you've got a situation where you don't have enough firepower, you got a whole other problem. So that's another reason why we try not to use mouse rounds as our defense rounds. Get yourself a 9mm, get yourself a 45. You're in a much better spot. So anyway, all that said, be safe shooting, everybody. But great experience on that. Learned a lot from Leroy on that, and having a good time. So
yeah, that's awesome. Man. That's awesome.
Yeah. So last two fun things, though, I want to tell you guys. I got my Baofeng radio here, or it might be Baofeng. I never know how to. I am having a blast with this. We programmed ours. I'm just going to give you a real quick, fast recommendation on these. We programmed ours, me and my homies around here, to where we've got the run of channels will also, we've got an overlap where there's a few of our channels that will connect with your average like toy walkie-talkie. So I'm talking to my kids' walkie-talkies on this. They're getting the biggest kick out of it. Walkie-talkie is the new favorite toy around here. And then I'm thinking like, man, by the time I'm changing batteries, and I'm changing some batteries on my kids' radios, and it's costing me some money. Every time I put like 3 or 4 AAAs in those things, and it seems like every day, I'm like, I could have just bought more Baofeng radios. So for like $20, man, get yourself these. Oh man, these run for like, I think the whole kit I got that had the extra headphones and all that kind of stuff was $39. You can get this for $23 on Amazon. It's actually a ham radio. It's a mini ham radio. It's got a few miles of range, and I can get on the, I mean, I don't have a license to do it, so I don't do it, but I can get on the repeaters and actually like do anything I want to with this. These are awesome. Everybody should get one of these. Get them on Amazon for cheap with the charger and everything. Get your safe Baofeng radio and have some fun with your kids and learn a little bit. You can chirp schedule. Actually, this would be a cool thing. Maybe Pete, actually, this is crazy, but if maybe sometime we wanted to do a little bit of a promotion to get contact info, which in most of our guys were like, I ain't giving you contact info because of the feds. And I would recommend, trust you on that. But we could do a little, I've got a spreadsheet that is all of the pre-programming chirp files so that you can actually plug the little thing into your computer, automatically program this thing. You're good to go. Anyway, good fun with the Baofeng. Yeah. So that's it. You want me to give our little nod? Hey, everybody. Lake Erie Arms is continuing to schedule classes, and we just added a couple more things. We've been doing individual defense training for $25 an hour. You can't beat that. So in addition to your CCW class, you can sign up. You can go in and use the do the direct training, really get customized one-on-one training for that. And then we've just added a handgun cleaning and care class, which a lot of people are finding to be very helpful. So if you're a brand new gun owner, that is a wonderful, wonderful class. You're going to learn about the ins and outs of how your gun functions, not just how to clean it well, but how to disassemble it, put it back together, even do minor repairs. You should really think about that class if you are a new gun owner, or really even if you're an experienced gun owner and just want to make sure you're doing it right. Anyway, Lake Erie Arms, check out learms.net, and we'd love to see you in the store.
Cool. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the From Concealment Podcast. And we will talk to you next week. Well, actually, no, you're off next week, so it might be a couple of weeks. Next week.
Yeah, that's all right. We'll see you when we get back, guys.
All right, guys. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the From Concealment Podcast with Pete Mitchell and Dan Sams. Be sure to tune in next week for more gun talk. Also, check out the From Concealment website for more shooting-related goodness at FromConcealment.com.